Test.
Okay.
All right, okay. Okay. Thank you, Madam Secretary. We're going to call the Finance Committee meeting to order for January 12th. Are there any public speakers that have indicated desire?
No.
All right. Then we'll just go ahead and move through the agenda, having a quorum.
Yes, sir.
First of all, the consent agenda.
Mr. Chair, I move approval of consent.
Thank you. I'll second that. Call for the question.
Directors Jones,
Aye.
Scheidegger.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you. We have a financial report up. Ms. McFarland, please. Lucky us.
I can hear you.
Absolutely.
I just wanted to say this is the auditor's report, and some of it will be showing you the new things that we completed. Okay, just to recap, we received this is the second report that you're receiving. Reports on our progress. Internal controls. Okay, now I hear myself. They are basically procedures, policies, practices put in place to safeguard the assets against misappropriation, to make sure that management authorizes all transactions, and to verify that we're properly recording and reporting transactions in accordance with the standards that we're obliged to follow under generally accepted accounting principles. And going back to what GAAP represents for us in the government sector, there are statements that they issue that we need to follow. There's also interpretations, technical bulletins, and concept statements, all issued by the Government Accounting Standard Board. In some cases, we have industry guidelines from the American Institute of CPAs or the Government Finance Officers Association. And then certainly when we're dealing with grants, we have rules issued by the Office of Management and Budget. And that is what we consider our generally accepted accounting principles. All right, as far as what we've completed in the last quarter, we hired our controller. He was in place and reported to work on April 14th. In some respects, it seems like he's been here longer. He's been doing very well, and that was in addition to myself and Ken Campos. So this fire district now has 3 certified public accountants with considerable governmental accounting experience. I started adding up all the years together, and I thought, no, I'm not going there. It makes us sound too old.
We shouldn't ask. Is that?
But it's impressive.
Discreet and valor together. There. Discretion and valor, yeah.
The next bullet is one that I think is really important. We know that one of our weaknesses that we were dinged on with our opinion from the auditors was the inventory. And with the last audit, we did get the clean opinion, but they still had some issues with how we were doing inventory. And the basic thing that we put in place were some very comprehensive procedures, written procedures that were followed during our inventory. And with June 30th being the year end, that's the timing because we're trying to establish what is the balance sheet amount for the various inventories. And just to kind of recap what we have our inventory at logistics, things like hoses and axes and things of that nature. We have inventory at fleet, which are, auto parts and the like. And then we also have inventory at air operations. And the first two audits were done the last week in June, and today the air ops audit or physical inventory count was done. And with the procedures and a lot of upfront work on identifying and isolating obsolete inventory to not be counted, we were able to reduce the amount of time it took us in half of what it took us the year before to do the counts. And so I'm expecting, as we value that we again will cut down the amount of time that we spend on that in half. And so we're trying to put our resources in the right place as far as our staff goes. And we worked hand in hand with the auditors, so they were aware what we did. They were there to observe the inventory, and we're very pleased with everything. They also suggested that we look at a perpetual inventory system. Every accountant, every CPA would love to have one. We have to, weigh that against our other priorities of the district. We certainly will put it in our list of desired things. It would give us even tighter controls over the inventory. But as a whole, our inventory isn't as material to this organization as it might be to, say, a retailer or something of that nature. Our biggest costs are tied up in our apparatus and that type of equipment. So what we did have put in place, though, by the logistics crew was the barcoding system that was obtained through a grant. It is up and running, and it is one of the things that, besides isolating things that we didn't need to count, it was the other thing that helped us decrease the amount of time. And so we were able to scan, enter into the system the number that the count was, and it would automatically record it on a report so we could list that out and not have to be handwriting things. So we are moving towards the 20th century, and we'll continue to make progress, but I think that was definitely the right step in the right direction as far as our inventory goes. So everybody was pretty positive about everything. So so I think we're in good shape to continue with the clean opinion that we received last year for this audit that's will be starting real soon. The other three things that I wanted to mention are on this next slide. We now have more secure transportation of our cash deposits, and this kind of went over and above what the auditors had asked us to do. We now have we are now part of the county system, so that they have a contract with a armored car service, and so we have pickups at the district for 2 times a week at Armstrong and 1 time a week at our community risk reduction site where they receive cash and checks. And previous to that, our staff was delivering them themselves downtown. And at the cost of, I would say, a minimum of 3 hours, because they would do one-ways on their way home, 3 hours of staff time. We pay for each pickup to the armored car, we pay $17. So we are coming way ahead. We're having more resources to stay in the office and work on the many other things that need to be attended to. Plus, we're not putting any employee in jeopardy carrying deposits around downtown. So I'm feeling pretty good about that. In addition, we were able to also piggyback on their mail routing system so that they come by our office every day and pick up inter-county mail at the cost of $12 a pop when we used to take them down there ourselves also. And it's one of the many things that we've put in place that now has our vendors paid much more promptly than they were ever paid before. So all in all, I think that was a real positive move. And then another area that they asked us to put some attention on was our billing with Whitman. So we now have a staff person dedicated to reviewing all the billing reports that come from Whitman, and on a monthly basis, and then on a daily basis, looking at the cash receipts that are deposited. They go directly from Whitman to the Treasury downtown with the County of Sacramento. So we're verifying that against the transaction information that were given by Whitman. We've also had a number of the staff over at Whitman. We've toured the facilities. We know who the key people are that we're dealing with. We understand their processes. and we're working together very, very well. So I do believe that's also a strength in internal controls. And then as a bonus, I added the last one. It really wasn't an audit finding, but I do think it's a significant improvement in our internal controls, and that is that our division heads are now receiving their budget to actual reports on a regular basis. At this time, we're doing it monthly. It was something that we talked about last meeting when we talked about involving the division heads more in being accountable for their budgets. So they are getting that information. And that indeed is an internal control, because if there's something amiss, they're going to know about it right away and be able to tell us, and we can follow up on it, whether it be a misposting or maybe something that we paid that we shouldn't have. So,
Yes, Ms. McFarland, this is a very good list of completions. The only thing I would say is under the top one, under more secure transportation of cash, add more secure and cost-effective transportation, because that was that's a huge part of
yes,
what you just
yes,
described
yeah.
to us.
Yeah, even
So-
more than the fuel cost going down there was the labor cost. So
Yeah.
So when I recap this for the next quarter, I'll add that. So I verbalized it, but we'll put it in writing. So
I
thank
think
you.
it'd be very good, because it's a huge, to me, it's a huge, a nice check, a nice check off.
Anything else?
No, thank you.
Okay.
Now,
I was a big fan of your efforts in undertaking these 17 findings when they were reported. And as I recall, the last time you reported, you had completed 3 or 4.
I have the recap at the end.
Oh, I'm jumping
Not
in
done
too
yet.
soon.
Yeah.
All right, hold that question.
Yeah,
All
we
right.
don't have this in our packet.
No.
So
no.
that's, we don't,
Yeah.
Thanks for saying
yeah,
that.
how I'm gonna cover it. Sure, we'll cover each other.
All right.
It's true, though. It's true. We
We
don't
have to
it.
give you something to look forward to at the meeting, you know?
Carry
Yeah.
on, please.
All right, the rest of the items are the ones that we discussed last time that were already completed. Issues having to do with restricted funds, designating this as the audit committee, recording reimbursements gross rather than net, tightening up on the cash handling procedures with segregation of duties, making sure undeposited receipts were secured in the safe, documenting who's actually made the deposit. So now, since we're not physically delivering those deposits, we document who put the envelope there for the armored car service, and then they have a receipt they actually signed. So we still have that audit trail of what's happening with the deposits. And then reconciliation of deposits reported by the county treasury to the financial system is also being done. With the controller not starting till the 14th of April, we are not as current as we'd like to be, but it is happening, and it is assigned to someone, and it's now considered a normal routine that is done as it should have been all along.
Is that a daily, a weekly, a monthly reconciliation?
We keep an eye on it as the deposits are made, and then we do an overall reconciliation at the end of the month.
Thank you.
Other complete items, the ambulance billing service, we had done the review and the reconciliation, which I mentioned previously, but we've taken it even further by getting more involved with the actual operations over there, which is what the auditors wanted us to do. And I think I'm repeating a few things, but there were little nuances of stuff, and I have a feeling I maybe didn't articulate them as well as I could have, but okay, one was just checking the cash balances. The other one was making sure that they tied into Eden, which is our financial system that we use, our internal system. And then we also now have the monthly payroll registered, reviewed by the controller. And I made sure that he had no access to make entries into the payroll register. So we can do that through our financial system. And so it's a kind of a check and balance that he's not involved in the actual preparation of the payroll.
Fresh eyes, yeah.
Okay, so we do have things that I feel like we have had significant progress on, and In the past, when the auditors came, they were actually auditing the county system rather than our own Eden financial system. So we are in transition right now in preparation for the upcoming audit for 2012 of getting all of our financial information into Eden. And we also spent a lot of time gathering information from the auditors because they had made all the 200 and some odd entries last year. So we have a copy of every entry, every spreadsheet that supports every entry that they made, so that we're not having to recreate the wheel. Since we paid for all of that, we might as well pick up from there. And so we are in the process of getting all the entries into that system. And now that we have a controller in place and we're trying to get fully staffed, we will be doing that on an ongoing basis. It really shouldn't be a year-end thing. It should be something that's kept up all the time, but we had to just take it one step at a time. Our capital facility fee study has already had its kickoff meeting. I have not seen the timeline on when the expected completion is, but the board did authorize that a number of meetings ago, and it is underway. I've seen, some of the information being gathered, and we'll continue to keep you abreast on that. Another area where we were written up was the fact that the county will make entries into their Compass books of Metro's accounts and weren't giving us any backup for it. And so we are regularly requesting the backup documentation. Sometimes it's, I don't think they're trying to be uncooperative, but it's not that easy to get it from them sometimes, and we have to repeatedly ask. So it's kind of a battle, so to speak. And I don't know if maybe it's just nobody's job over there, nobody wants to do it, but now that things are settling a little bit down with the budget, probably Ron and I will go over and meet with the county again. Ken and I did a meet and greet last fall. They've been just really buried with this whole redevelopment, sorting out things. So I've been trying to stay out of their way. But I think it's probably time to make another visit, and this would be one of the things that we could bring up is areas where they could improve. And we certainly have tried to do the things that they've asked us to do to help them do a better job for us. So we're trying to make this a partnership and work well together. And then we talked last time about the procedure documentation. Everything kind of had a skeleton write-up, and as we're going into various areas and doing different things, we're assigning people to put more details in those procedures. So it will be an evolving thing. I guess at some point I'll be able to say it's complete, but at this point I consider it a work in progress. Okay, so this is the I'm calling last quarter, quarter 3, based on the fiscal year quarters. And at that time, we had 10 items in progress, 4 complete, and 3 that we were assigning to the controller when he arrived, which he's now arrived. And so he still has his 3 assignments, but we had a couple of the items move from in progress to complete. So we have 6 of the 17 complete, 8 in progress, and 3 that are still left to address. And a lot of those are tied into the entries that we'll be making for the fiscal year 2012 audit. And so my expectation is definitely by the end of the calendar year, so by the second quarter of this new fiscal year, I believe those will go into the complete column, because it's a necessary thing having to do with the audit that's moving forward. And that's the end of my report.
Jones, any questions or comments?
No, thank you very much. I appreciate seeing a recap like this.
And I'll just mention that, I did prepare elaborate documentation for the auditors on the status of these things and sent it to them. Maybe I'm kind of going into a different item that we have on here, but so I'm keeping them abreast of it as well. And I like that we're doing this quarterly thing. I think it's keeping us on our toes and making sure we don't lose sight of things that we intend to do to get things where they need to be.
Yeah, I'd like to make a comment. I'd like to reflect Director Jones' comments and thanking you for your efforts. I think one of the most important things in maintaining the public trust is the audit function. And we got these 17 findings, and your efforts in terms of addressing them, I think, are terrific. That we have 6 complete, we have 8 in progress still and 3 assigned. That's a good scorecard, and I think it's going to go a long way to maintaining our public trust. So thank you for doing that. Good
You're
work.
welcome, and I don't do it alone. Our whole team has been working on this, and they feel a lot of pride in the success that we're having.
Okay. How about a status report on the fiscal year? 2012, 2013?
Do you want me to do the May financial, item 4?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Wait.
But that's
Yeah,
what
no.
we did, though. The
Yeah.
Oh,
internal
that's
control
next. Okay,
update
that's
was
number
for-
6. Okay, number 5, yes. I
I was going to go in order, but
Okay, I'm sorry. The status of the audit is, we have the auditors coming for preliminary field work next week. They will be there Tuesday and Wednesday. And the primary thing they do at their preliminary audit work is look at the internal controls, because they want to know what they can rely on and what areas that they just have to beat on and look at every transaction. So we'll be getting a lot more feedback next week based on the things that I've presented to you and provided to them. They will also just be on site to ask the staff questions, look for things that are new that weren't there last year. A perfect example would be the new trust that we opened up with CalPERS for the OPEB. Fortunately, we didn't get the deposit in quite yet, but it'll happen this month after we have the board approve that budget that's on the full agenda. But they'll be looking at anything that's new, any new big transactions. And then the following week, what we've scheduled for them to do is to go ahead and do the grant audit. Last time they were following the grant audit after the regular audit, and we didn't see any reason why not to do it earlier. It's going to take us a while to be prepared for the bigger audit, but we have all of our grant stuff laid out very well and documented very well. So we thought we'd go ahead and push that forward so we could know that was done. And then we will continue to work on the entries that we need to put us on the accrual basis. And they will be returning in October for their final field work. And my goal is to have the audit report by Thanksgiving, which would probably mean it would be, if they were available to come to that first meeting in December, would be when you would see it. So that's quite a bit earlier than you've seen it in the past, and I think it will be much more timely for the board. You will probably be seeing some kind of a letter that they will send to the audit committee, just making sure you understand that they're out there doing the work and, what the responsibilities of the audit committee are and that, really they report to you. We're there to assist them. They're checking on me and my staff. But so you're the oversight for them. So they'll be sending you a communication on that.
they'll let us know that they're on board, starting their process. And okay, good.
And last year, when the contract came to the board, you approved it for 3 years and gave Chief Hinkie the authorization to continue year to year up to 3 years. So he went ahead and signed the agreement with them for the second of 3 years. So, and that's what's going on.
All right. Well, let's move on to the next item.
The information that we're presenting tonight is year-to-date information through May 31st of 2012. And I'll mention to you that, as we've done in the past, that these slides don't tie directly to the information in your packet, but they're more or less summarizing the data that you received, the more comprehensive data you received in your finance packet. So the numbers up in the right-hand corner in yellow refer to pages in your packet.
Okay.
Upper right hand.
Okay, so this graph depicts our cash balance history for our cash at the county, and we, as of May 31st, had about $36 million, and that's the blue line. And I think what's significant to note is that that line is higher than where we were last year by about $14 million. Last year at May 31st, we had about $22 million. So our cash position is looking very healthy. Okay, this is the new slide that we put in last meeting to account for the undesignated reserves. And the only thing that I did a little different was I went ahead and in the table where we show the budget, the amount of budgeted expenditures, last time we had the same amount in there for every single quarter, and I went ahead and changed it to what the budget was at that time, because we started with a preliminary budget, then we had the final budget, and then in March we had the mid-year budget. So at least you can kind of keep an eye on how the budget changed through the year. And then at May 31st, our ratio was at 17.7%, which are undesignated reserves versus our operating budget for the general fund. And I have gone ahead and done some estimates, which we'll be continuing to refine, but I'm estimating that we actually will be at 13.8% as of the end of June. We still have bills coming in that we're paying, and that is more or less on a cash basis. So it could vary when we start accruing things, like we just received some more redevelopment money in that they're saying has to do with last year, but we didn't get it till July, that kind of thing. So before we were looking at about 11%, so this is significantly higher, and I'll kind of address that as we go through our report on how that came to be. It's from a number of different sources, and we'll go over it in great detail next Finance Committee, since we will be reviewing the June statements.
Whole year.
Yeah, and then if you remember from last year, once we have the audit, we'll bring June back again with the fully audited numbers. So you'll be seeing June twice. Okay, talking about revenue, we did receive last year in May our property tax money. Where this year we received it in April, so we saw that last month. We have a page on here, do we? 12. Oh, there it is. Okay. I was looking up in the blue again. Page 12 is the information on the property taxes. We did, part of why our June 30th estimate is looking better is we did receive another $1.7 million in property taxes the same day as our last board meeting. So I think it was the 28th of June. It was very late. I looked back at last year at that time, and we didn't get a big slug of money like that. So I'm still trying to figure out what the pattern is of the money, but
You're not the only one.
yeah. But it was a nice thing to find more money in there. So we're going to end up actually exceeding our budget and coming in at about $107 million for the year on property taxes. So the year-to-date of $4.7 million is 4.3% less than the same period last year. And our medic fees are also are the other direction. They're ahead 4.2 million, or 28.3% ahead of this time last year, May 31st of 2011. Based on the numbers that we've seen even through the end of June, we're going to end up with about $21 million for the year in medic revenue. So very, very strong. And so as of May 31st, we were at 97.7% of our estimated revenue for the year. And the percentage of the budget, which we always show up in the left-hand corner on these schedules for 11 months, is 91.67%. So definitely very solid on our revenue. We always try to be conservative, but as close as we can be without being too aggressive. So I would expect that we would be a little bit over if, but we've left a little margin for error there. And we expect to end up at about $139 million in total revenue as of June 30th. And that's just based on a cash basis.
I have a question, and I apologize for not checking with you earlier, but as we're going through this, I noticed this, and maybe you could help me read through. On my packet in the
Oh, you have-
detail,
Is this the headings?
no.
Okay.
On page 13,
Uh-huh.
it's property taxes, medic cost recovery dash general operating fund.
That should just say medic cost recovery.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Well, oh gosh, I'm gonna be dumb here, but I can't, let's see, is it through, through May 31st?
We're at $19.1 million through May 31st.
Yeah. But it says 2010, 2011, you took 1488. Okay, never mind, I see. I was looking at the total medic cost recovery. At the bottom, it said 16.3, and yet in the recovery cost, it was 14.8, but that's through the end of May.
May 31st.
And we have June and counting period
I just-
13 added in on that.
Right, and I'm probably confusing you a little bit mentioning the June stuff, but I've been looking at that recently and kind of excited about it, so I'm kind of giving you a little preview.
But no, that's really good. I was just looking at
Yeah.
that 4.2, and then I looked at the two totals that I had circled earlier, and it was less than 4.2. However, it's a different time date, so,
Okay.
thank you.
So it balances in the end.
So I just went through 2 minutes of showing I didn't really study
good
this hard
question.
enough.
Good questions. Thank you.
Well,
Thank
and
you.
we had a little bit of heading problems at the top, so I hope that didn't confuse you, but we'll get those fixed for next month. Okay, on to our labor costs. We're coming in just very, very close overall for the year end at May 31st with where we thought we would be on our budget on labor. So it's a huge part of our budget, and it's not that easy to be that close. So I'm feeling pretty good about this, and based on my estimates, I think we're going to be right on the money for our budget for the year. So we're at 91.67% for 11 months, and we're at 91.6 for our spending, so we are like right there. I'll give credit to all my payroll staff and to Ken Campo that assisted with that. And so, but I wanted to emphasize again our concessions. So that number is net that we've spent to date of almost 111 million we've spent to date is net of 7.2 million in labor concessions, and I think that's real important to emphasize. And our labor costs is budgeted for 80.6% of our budget, so that's the huge share of our budget.
Question of my mind, on page 11 of the package that we have, the total wages for 73 differ from the 7.2 million.
The 7.2 million is the concessions, so that is basically the two red numbers
Okay, I
added
gotcha.
together.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so the 73 total wages would really be minus the 2.3. Okay, good. Good, thank you.
Welcome. Were there any other questions on the general fund?
Dr. Jones?
Yes, thank you. Again, it's probably here, I just don't see it. On this slide, it says actual labor costs are 80.6% of the total budgeted expenditures. That's of our entire budget, correct?
Yes.
All right. Is that 80% found anywhere on?
Yes.
Okay,
If you
where?
If you see under where it says 1,000 accounts, it says total labor costs, and you go all the way to the right, it says 80.57.
Oh, okay, percent. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
8.57.
And I'll just
Excellent.
point out too that I've been learning more about our MOU we have with the employees, and there's certain percentages in there, and they're defined differently than how we're doing this. So I'll be doing some calculations for them and for Chief Henke as they go into negotiations in August, because there are certain things they exclude, like probationary employees' salaries and the such. So even though we're showing certain ratios here, I don't want to mislead anybody to think that that's the number it should be similar, but it's not the exact number that is tied out in the MOU.
Right. And I'm not really, my question isn't to delve down into the weeds on that one. But does that include the grants or grants from your
No, the
year?
grants are in a separate fund. This is just the general fund.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Slide?
Talking about Capital Facilities Fund. So starting on page 16. At mid-year, we changed the budget for capital development fees to $1 million, and we're at $990,612. So we're at 99.1% of the estimate for the year. And if you look at the bottom left-hand corner, we're at 44.7% higher than we were at this time last year. So we are seeing an uptick in development activity, yet ever so small. When I was reviewing this schedule, I was looking to see, we pay for our lease revenue bonds in November and May. We issued them in December, so our first payment was in May. And I noticed when I was reviewing them that all of the debt service costs are sitting in this D fund, the Capital Facilities Fund. So we'll be making a transfer because, as we say here, 201,000 of it should have been actually posted to the leased fund because we have specific percentages that our underwriter tied out as to what portion of the debt service pertains to the bottom floor versus the top floor. So you'll be seeing that change in our June information. Okay. Okay, so we still do have bond proceeds. As at the end of May, we were with $2.8 million. We've got the fifth reimbursement request was received in May, and we just recently actually reimbursed Sutter for their tenant improvements. So that just happened in June. So you'll see that was over $1 million. So next month you'll see that coming down by that amount. Just reiterating that we do have that leased property fund now with 3 properties rented, leased, and 2 properties that are in tentative negotiations. So moving ahead. Just wanted to give a little bit more information on the grants. If you look at page 21, that's where we have our report that lists all of our grants, showing the award amount, which amounts have been spent in prior years, which ones have been spent in the current year, and which amounts will be in the new fiscal year, which we're now in. So, and then we tried to recap it here also in the form of a graph, listing out the various grants and showing the amount that we have been awarded and the amount that has been expended on these grants. So in total, we were looking at, on the schedule, almost $14 million in grants, of which, let's see, we've got 3.8 spent to date, and we're expecting about $5 million by the end of June, according to the mid-year budget. And then if we go on, we have one more slide where we just kind of recap again the full grant program since our Chief Development Officer put it together. We're at $17.5 million, of which about $6 million is in the 11-12 year and another 3.4 in the current year that we're in now. So really, really good track record. And I don't know that we necessarily anticipate that that's a declining pattern, but what you'll find is that we don't ever budget for a grant just because we put in for it. So once we have it, then it will be adjusted, say at mid-year. And we do anticipate more grants than what we'll be budgeting for, but we will only ever put in award amounts. No speculation on our part. Okay, and that's all I have on that.
Director Jones, any questions or comments?
No, sir, thank you.
Thank you. One comment, again, excellent report. You added several slides to your presentation. I would appreciate it if I get copies of those.
Okay.
You like them also?
I thought they're very informative, and it's a good bullet in a bullet point fashion. It's very good for speaking points.
You know, with a lot of numbers, it's, for me even, and I'm the accountant, I can get kind of glazed over. So I try to just pull out what I think are the kind of the points we should be focusing on. And we did bring a copy of the presentation for you, so we'll make sure you have it.
Okay, we'll move on. Budget?
Okay, we will plan to bring that to you at the next meeting. There will be very minimal changes to it, and at this point, I'm not aware of any of large dollar changes at all. But if there are any, they will be recapped for you. We did publish in the Sacramento Journal information to the public to know that our preliminary budget had been adopted and that it's available for them to look at in our lobby, as well as on our website. So that was done, and then we'll be bringing that forward to you at the next meeting.
Finance Committee?
No, we were actually, we're going to bring it at the next full board meeting.
Yes.
Okay.
If for any reason we end up with substantial changes, we could always wait until the following Finance Committee meeting, but we're not really anticipating that that's going to be the case, so, yeah.
No, sir?
Thank you very much.
On to legal bills.
And Mr. Chair, I move that we ratify payment for
I'll
March
second
2012.
I'll second that. Any question?
Director Jones,
Aye.
Scheidegger.
Aye.
Motion passes.
August, what is it?
On 9.
9, thank you. August 9th, is that correct, Finance? Is there anything else for the good of the order? Chief, did you have a comment? Look good to me. All right, hearing nothing else for the good of this order, we'll adjourn the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.